Thank you very much, Mark. It's really been exciting to be a part of the AR ecosystem over the past number of years, and to be able to see the momentum that's been building and to feel it and witness what's been going on as enterprises begin to actually deploy these type of solutions. One of the things that we found is naturally a growing concern as people move from pilot programs, proof of concepts, into actual towards production deployment of solutions regarding the uncertainty and degree that they should be concerned about cybersecurity risks that might be associated with these wearable, mobile, augmented reality devices. So the area commissioned this study to look into this really important topic that's universally applicable to all of us here, and to help develop a common vocabulary that people can use in order to have conversations about this topic, to develop a common framework that you can use in order to assess and evaluate the various security threats and the degrees to which those threats might be real and impactful to your organization, and some metrics to be able to help measure. It's important to understand that this is just the very first study. It's the very first foray into this, but it is, as far as anyone that we've been in contact with, the first comprehensive analysis and sort of summary of thought leadership in this particular topic area. We're all well aware of the benefits of augmented reality, providing extraordinary data to folks out in the field, to designers, architects, engineers, construction folks, operations and maintenance folks. We're opening up channels for two-way voice and video communication with remote experts. We're providing access to remote information so that the workers out there on the plant floor and out in the field can have access to this information and knowledge that they need in order to conduct their jobs. But if you look at the flip side of that, each one of those features and functions could potentially be something that someone could exploit if they had the desire and the means to do that. So we want to understand what those things are. For example, you all have seen or witnessed the latest rash of ransomware that came out, and we just wondered as a team, could those potentially somehow exploit augmented reality headsets and solutions that are in the enterprise? Like, if you really think about it, it'll start to keep you up at night, and I'm not just trying to build some hype here. If somebody could stall your enterprise production or your enterprise activities, what would happen if you're in an aircraft production plant and you can't suddenly access or even trust the integrity of the data that you're working with? And what about if you're part of some national critical infrastructure like an electric power plant or an offshore oil rig, and you can't trust your user authentication any longer for people who are using these devices, and the data that it's been collecting about your environment and the location of your resources is now subject to potential exploitation. So it's time that we have an adult conversation about this, right? It's okay that up until now, everyone has obviously been focused rightly on just getting AR systems to technically work, right? Getting headsets so that they're usable in a form factor, getting software that works, getting applications that are beginning to address real use cases that can produce significant business value. But now we need to turn our attention to these cybersecurity elements. The area awarded the contract to do this study to our Brainwaive team. I'm super fortunate to be able to work with some extraordinary folks here on the team who have over 100 cumulative years of experience in hundreds of different projects in emerging technology and cybersecurity. We have participated as leaders in development of international security standards, which I'll describe a little bit more in a bit, and also between us have an extraordinary government and enterprise industrial professional network that we can exploit to help build on our body of work here. As you might expect and require, a company like ours that's working with vendors and enterprise clients maintains the highest degree of ethics and integrity in the work that we do. We want to maintain confidentiality of things that we're told where that's appropriate. We want to make sure that we're reporting in an accurate and objective and factual standpoint about the things that we do. So when we came together and we started looking at this problem, we assumed, like we've learned many people assume, that it's probably reasonable to start thinking about these AR headsets and the applications that run on them like another sort of unique kind of conventional mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet. Also, to a degree, right, it's an IoT thing, and people have been talking about IoT security to a degree. What we found, in fact, is that it's an inaccurate and it's also a potentially dangerous assumption to make that these AR headset devices are just another type of mobile device. In fact, there are a lot of things related to the way the OS is on the device. Maybe it's unique, maybe it's a standard operating system, but it certainly comes out of the box in an unhardened state from a security perspective. And what about user authentication and identity management, identity of the device, identity of the user? What sort of data is being collected here? Massive data coming from all these sensors, and where's that stored, and how long does that data persist, and how could one exploit that if they decided to? I mentioned a little bit earlier that our Brainwaive team has experience developing global standards. Jesus on our team is one of the co-authors of the Industrial Internet Consortium's security framework. Bob, who's in the audience here, was with the IEEE for 25 years and a senior director in their standards organization. And Frank he's a military cybersecurity expert with activities with the National Reconnaissance Office, with the CIA, and with the Army and Navy and some other military organizations. And so we have, as a group, some great familiarity with some of these other standards, and we looked at where are those standards applicable to this new sort of environment, and where are there gaps? Where we found gaps, we've now augmented those standards with the new, improved Area Enterprise AR security, cybersecurity framework. So this is to address those gaps that don't exist in the other standards. We took a three-phased approach here regarding this framework that we put together. The first is the identification of security requirements. So if you have a particular device and you're deploying it to a particular environment and there's a certain person that has a certain role, let's characterize that. Next, let's look at the security design of the hardware and the software of the device itself. And then the third phase is just the beginning of setting up a framework for doing active penetration testing of these kind of solutions. We started by looking across a variety of common use cases that people have been developing for AR in the enterprise. We looked at safety and privacy considerations that are important in those use cases, and then we mapped out the architecture, and you can see there on the left, up at the very top, we've got the headset as an endpoint. It's important to understand that this first study that we've done here for the area is focused on the headset specifically, but the headset is just one element in the overall architectural stack that's necessary, absolutely required in many cases, to make these enterprise applications successful. So through the local wireless network, through on-prem servers and applications, potentially up and through the cloud into enterprise and other applications, and then management tools that have been designed to help manage different elements of that overall chain. Then around each one of those elements, we established a trust boundary, or we identified what the trust boundary is. Then we evaluated the threat vectors that one could take in order to penetrate those trust boundaries. In phase 2, we evaluated the security design of the hardware and software system of the headset itself specifically. So what sort of I/O ports are available on this device? What sort of sensors? What's the operating system doing? How about how is the software managing user authentication or root of trust, identity management of the device itself? What about monitoring and logging of activities? What sort of data is being collected and stored? How long is that data being stored? Who has access to that data? In phase 3, the penetration testing portion, we're trying to exercise all of the vulnerabilities that we've identified to determine, first of all, are they real? Is this a real thing? Is it actionable? Can somebody actually do something with it? And then somehow measure the degree of impact that's possible through that particular exploitation. We looked at 3 different modes. We looked at the headset as an entity itself. Can someone break into that headset and access the data or the sensors? Maybe they commandeer the sensors that are on that headset. We also looked at the headset as an injection point to be able to work through that headset into other enterprise IS assets and access data and other resources that way. And the third way is what's called a vector transition or a cyberkinetic bridge, which I just love that term, which means that imagine a worker's in a production plant and they're walking around with this headset on and it's gathering all this data about the environment. Someone else accesses that data and can identify the location of security cameras, and then they can exploit that. So it's not directly through the device, but it's using the information from the device. Our findings overall to this point, and we continue to gather them, and we will continue on an ongoing basis. First of all, these AR headsets are unique. It's a mistake, and you would be falling short of the mark if you evaluated them only as mobile devices. Mobile device management application suites are very important. They probably are going to play an important role, but they're not sufficient to manage all the various aspects. Secondly, the stakeholders and the AR stakeholders trying to implement these solutions tend to pass the buck. Everybody that we talked to, in essence, said, well, that's not really my deal. The mobile device management guys will, this application will handle that. Or the IT manager, the enterprise manager who's looking to implement it said, well, I'm sure our hardware and software and system integrators are going to manage that. And the system integrators are going, well, your IT guys are the ones who probably should manage. They need to be responsible for your enterprise security. And the IT guys and the mobility teams are going, this is a bizarre animal. We've never seen this. We don't know how to deal with it. We're open, but you're going to have to come to us with some sort of comprehensive review of, among other things, the security aspects of this before we're going to put it into our environment. Oh, go back here real quick. Also, there are gaps in the existing models that are out there, right? So we developed this new new framework based on the prior ones, and that early involvement in discussion of security by all of the parties is really important to feed success of the programs. To validate the framework, we did a bunch of hands-on testing. These are my 3 guys doing a bunch of crazy things, basically pushing the devices in every way that we could. We conducted a large number of industry interviews with these folks who I really want to thank for your contributions, and we're going to continue to draw information from other folks in order to validate and extend and strengthen and expand what the area is able to offer through this framework. What's really needed, this call to action for all of us, is to begin now to incorporate discussions of of data and cybersecurity into the conversations. Get involved. Hold your peers accountable to understand, what is it from your perspective. Bring in specialists who can help with the various areas. You're going to need your IT folks, you're going to need your mobility folks, you're going to need the system integrators and all the device manufacturers, et cetera. So let's quit passing the buck and let's start the conversations. Let's do this as early as possible. As I mentioned, we're conducting ongoing ingestion of data. We'd like all of you to go out here to this SurveyMonkey site. Doesn't matter what your level of experience is, what your role is, doesn't matter. We want your perspective on the security elements of deploying these AR devices in the enterprise. Finally, the most important point of this entire project is join the area. Mark is paying me. Because really, it is the only organization that's out there designed to bring together all of us as various stakeholders, investigate these common areas of interest and concern, and be able to provide the benefits of our best thinking. Let's all share with each other and do it through the area. Also, as a bonus, you get access to these 2 member-exclusive reports that we're putting together. The first one on the security risks and management, sort of the overview report. The second on the data security framework and testing protocol for how you can begin to understand and assess these. That's it. Thank you very much. I hope that by implementing some of this work, you guys are able to get to success with your projects faster and with a higher degree of business impact.
Thank you, Tony. Don't go, don't go. Got Slido. Don't go, Slido. Probably got time for just one, Tony, so pick the hardest one.
Great. I should have brought my glasses too. Yeah, so the question first, if I understand it correctly, about how our standard's going to protect the intellectual property, I don't have an answer for that. It's an open question. It's a really challenging question. We would love to talk with you more about that, give you our ideas and what we've learned from people, and also understand your perspective and where you're coming from about that.
So I think what we'll do is we'll give Tony the questions and he'll answer those and we can make them available as well.
Great. I encourage you to seek me out and my partner Bob back here, and we'd like to have the conversations. Thank you.